is going on, everybody? It's Matt with the FF Mediators and the Faceoff Sports Network. I'm joined by my fellow mediators. I've got Coach in here and Tyler. What is going on, guys? We've got a big show tonight. We're going to do a Dynasty rookie mock draft with landing spots. So I'm going to pin the mock draft that we took from Chad Reuter, who's a draft analyst over with NFL Network. I'll put that in the chat, and then we'll pull up the sleeper board here, and we'll get started on this Dynasty mock draft. Tyler, it's your first time back in a while. How's it going, man?
Doing good, man. You know, real life gets busy from time to time. Glad to be back though. So let's get into it.
Yeah, Coach, what about you, man? You excited to be here?
Yeah, man, let's roll. I'm ready to go. I can't wait.
Well, like I said, I'm going to throw the landing spots in the chat. If you want to pull up the draft and follow along, you can. And it is up there from Chad Reuter, draft analyst over with NFL Network. We've got a bunch of different landing spots, and I'll throw the draft board up here on the board. I'm going to be the first pick. Tyler's going to be the second pick, and Coach is going to be the third pick. We will rotate through. This is a Dynasty 12-team SuperFlex league. We're going to do 3 rounds. Talk about some players. If you're here following along, throw some questions in the chat. We are more than happy to break down some players. Joe's already the first one to pop in. Thanks for being here, Joe. But let's just get started, guys. And with the first pick, I'm going to make this pretty easy. I'm going to take Ashton Jeanty in this situation in the mock that we got from Chad. Jeanty finds his way on the Las Vegas Raiders. So the Raiders find a running back that everyone thinks Pete Carroll's going to do. I don't quite think that's how it'll actually work out, but in this situation, I'm taking that pick. So without further ado, if there's any comments from you, Tyler, you're on the clock.
Yeah, I mean, Jeanty, if he goes at 6, I mean, I feel like that's kind of a no-brainer there. I know a lot of people like Cam Ward, especially going 101, and he would be my pick here. Once Jeanty's off the board and you're in Superflex, I think the first quarterback off the board is probably your next best bet. They just hold their value so well regardless of their performance. So I'm going to take Cam Ward here at the 102.
So Coach's guy, Cam Ward, goes off the board at the 102. I'm sure that is just a crushing blow for him. But, Coach, what's your thoughts on Cam Ward going at the 102? Are you comfortable with that value there?
Oh, man, that's the pick I would have made there, especially in Superflex. Not just because I like Cam Ward. I just think there's so much value in a top pick quarterback right there, especially going after Jeanty. To me, it's just hard to pass that up. With that being said, picking third here for me, I'm going Travis Hunter to the Browns. Like, I just really believe he's going to play wide receiver. Like, I know a lot of people are scared to make this pick that early. I understand that, but I just believe he's going to go where the money is. He's the best athlete in the draft. I'm going Travis Hunter. It's hard. If you pass on Travis Hunter and he ends up playing wide receiver, you're going to regret passing on him.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting pick. We've all discussed, I think we're all in agreement that Travis Hunter is the best pure wide receiver in this class. The biggest question mark we have is he actually going to get to play that? But I'm with Coach. If we get any sort of indication, I have a hard time not seeing him being the 102, maybe the 103 in this class. There's just so much value there for a guy like that with that kind of ball skills. I can't blame you at all, Coach. So I am back on the clock, boys. It's the 104. Interesting situation here. We had Shador go to the Giants at the 103. There's a lot of people that don't think that's going to happen now. It should be noted that there's another quarterback that went in the top 10 in Chad's draft, and that's Jackson Dart, who went to the Jets at the 107. Tyler Warren went to the Panthers at the 108, and Ted McMillan went to the Cowboys at the 112. So there's a lot of fantasy value here. I'm not sure that I'm really ready to pull the trigger on Jackson Dart at the 104, just given the fact that it's to the Jets. They've signed Fields. Well, I've critiqued Fields a lot, and I think so has Coach. I think in this situation, I'm just stuck, and I'm going to go with Ted McMillan to the Cowboys. It's an interesting fantasy option. He gets paired with Dak Prescott. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb's there, but Ted McMillan's going to have a lot of value there if he finds his way in Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes the most sense, especially being next to CD. You know, I think that makes perfect sense. Like we said, if Travis Hunter comes out and plays wide receiver, he should be the wide receiver one of this class. For me personally, if I expect Travis Hunter to kind of split time on both sides of the ball, you know, primarily be defensive, have some offensive sets. where he's on the field. Probably get anywhere from like 6 to 8 targets a game, which is not bad by any means, but I think it's far from what he could be if he just played wide receiver. At that point, I might take Tet a little bit over him, but regardless, they're both off the board here, and I'm at the 105. Man, Shador is tempting to the Giants there. I can't make myself do it. And Jackson Dart, as much as I may like him, him being in a competition with Fields, I just don't want to deal with. So I'm actually going to kind of drop down the board here, just because I like the landing spot. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I'm actually going to go with Travion Henderson. So we're going to go Cowboys back to back here. I'm going to take the running back 2 off the board. And I mean, we've been asking for how long for the Cowboys to draft a running back. We would love for them to get Genty. I just don't think he's going to make it that far. So if they can get Hendo in there, I think it'll prove well for them.
Yeah, you gotta love that landing spot. Like I was looking at that myself. Like, man, that is so tempting for the Cowboys there. Moving to 106. Like, I feel like there's a lot of options here. If you need a quarterback, I personally am a Jackson Dart fan more than I am Sanders. Although Sanders is a really good processor, I think Daboll can get the most out of him. I do like Dart. Assuming if you were to be in a tight end premium league, it would be almost impossible here, in my opinion, to pass on Tyler Warren. I know he's mocked to the Panthers. I mean, obviously there are maybe some better landing spots at the same time. Bryce Young was really good. That offense seems to be trending in the right direction. That's why I'm going to go with Tyler Warren here of the Panthers at 106.
Yeah, I think Tyler Warren is one of those players that we've talked about this several times. He's just one of the best football players in this draft. Obviously, the tight end position is not necessarily the most important thing for NFL teams, but I mean, we're just a year out from when Brock Bowers really changed the fantasy landscape of tight ends. And, he's certainly a difference maker for rosters. And it's not that I think that he's better than Brock Bowers, but I don't think he's a bad football player. So Tyler Warren has a lot of value. And I think, Coach, you're spot on. If this is any type of tight end premium here, at the 106, top 10 draft capital is tough to pass. I mean, think of the other tight ends that we've loved. I mean, obviously we had Bowers. You have Kyle Pitts not too long ago. But Tyler Warren is just a different player, man. He did a lot of things that Pitts couldn't do and has never done in his entire career. So I love the pick there by Coach. Want to give a shout out to Albert. He's in the chat here. He says, "What's up, fellas? Untitled Fantasy Football's here." We also had Joel here. So we're excited to walk through some of these picks and kind of talk about some different rookies. So if you're in here, let us know if you have a question or if you want us to talk about a player. We will more than happy break them down. But we'll carry on, and it's the 107. So I'm back on the clock. We still have 2 quarterbacks that were drafted in the top 10 in this mock draft, and Shador Sanders and Jackson Dart. So that's an interesting play here at the 107. We know those quarterbacks continue to gain value. We saw Bryce Young do this. Even when he played poorly, he still has that value over a first-round pick. And Emeka Egbuka went to the Seattle Seahawks at the 118. Colston Loveland to the Broncos. Omarion Hampton to the Steelers. And then there's an interesting pick down here that is just calling my name, and I can't get away from it. And it's Matthew Golden to the Bills. And these boys know that I love Matthew Golden. And I'm just stuck here because the idea of Josh Allen finally connecting with a wide receiver, I know I'm not going to get him at the 110 when it's my next pick, so I've got to take him. I get there's value with these running backs, but, man, Matthew Golden is just one of my favorite players, and this is a dream landing spot. So I'm going to go with Golden here at the 107, and this, again, presumes that he gets drafted to the Bills with a 27th pick overall. I think he would absolutely be their wide receiver 1.
He's no Keon Coleman.
I knew that pick was coming before he even said anything. I could have made. I would have bet all the money I had on that.
It's tough, man. Like, I would love to take a guy like Omarion Hampton who went in the first round, but Golden has just been my guy. Like, I love him to death. So Untitled says he's hung up on tight ends lately, so some great info there, Coach. And hold on, we've got another tight end to talk about here soon. We'll see if he makes it in the first round, so stay tuned, Untitled. But Tyler, you're on the clock, the 108. What are we doing?
Yeah, as much as like I've kind of doubted him throughout the scouting process, I feel like this is the last spot Shadur could fall here. I mean, you keep pushing him down the board, and I feel like you're just doing nothing but, getting more and more value. So I would take him here, especially being at the 103 to the Giants. He really has nobody outside of Russell Wilson and Jameis to compete with, and I think those guys are both at the tail end of their career. So somebody who could handle the spotlight of New York. You talk about like he's been in it. He's been a pro since he was a kid. I mean, his dad's been his coach the entire time. So he is a great processor. There's been questions floated out in the media and everything. I think his character really good. We'll just have to know where he lands, and if he does land at the Giants, especially the way the board's fallen now, I don't think you can pass on him here.
Yeah, I'm with you there on Shador. He's a good processor. Brian Daboll, I think, can help him. I don't love going into that situation with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Like, it just seems like that would be really rough sledding for a rookie there. Like, that would make me really, really concerned as a Giant fan about the development of Sanders a little bit. But at the same time, like you said, you can't pass on that value there. So I'm up next, and when I look at this, I sort of think, obviously Jackson Dart's there, and we're to the point where it's almost impossible to pass on a top 10 quarterback. But a guy I'm concerned myself right here if I'm drafting is I really would like to get a piece of Quinshon Judkins to the Bears. He was mocked to the Bears, and that's a place where, he could be the primary guy and sort of become a bell cow there. But it's just impossible right now to pass on a quarterback like Jackson Dart right here and the value that I could get for him. I mean, if I don't like it later, I can flip it easily for another first-round pick or two. You never know. So I got to go Jackson Dart right here at 109.
Yeah, I think that's the responsible play, Coach, of, like you said, you could flip it for another first or possibly more than that. I mean, if Dart shows any promise, what we know in these SuperFlex leagues is the quarterback value is just crippling. Because if you don't have two quarterbacks, and a lot of times even three quarterbacks, you're struggling. So if you're able to pull a guy at the end of the first round that went top 10, 7th overall to the Jets, that's an absolute fantastic pick, at the 109. But I do understand it's tough. You got to make that decision. And, we don't have rosters here. We're just mocking for fun, but it's a tough situation to be in. And, now I'm back on the clock at the 110, two quarterbacks went. So it's time to go after some of these running backs, I think. Omarion Hampton went to the Steelers in the first round in this mock draft from Chad Reuter. So I'm going to take Omarion Hampton. I think he's going to be a big-time player. He's got the opportunity to really be someone that can play on both passing downs and running downs. He's got decent hands. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think that I wouldn't quite put his upside as high as some of the other backs. Like, I'd rather have Travion Henderson, obviously Genty. But if Omarion Hampton gets first-round capital like this, it's tough not to take him in this situation.
Yeah, I agree there. I mean, if you didn't take him, I'll be honest, I was 100% going to. So that was a good snipe by you there, Mr. Matt. So being here at the 111, the one guy that I really am high on in the scouting process, and just watching him in general, was Emeka Egbuka. The only thing I don't like about this is the landing spot. Going to the Seahawks is kind of rough. They just signed Cooper Kupp. It was 3-year, I think $45 million was his contract. So them, like having him and JSN, that kind of dampens the fire that I have for Egbuka here. And so with that being said, I'm going to take Coach's pick. I'm going to take Quinshon Judkins, who got mocked to the Bears here. I think if you're talking about having a running back run here at the end of the first, I think he's the next guy to go. So that would be my pick there.
Yeah, see, that would be the scenario I was afraid of. Like Judkins wasn't going to get back to me, but I took Dart, so I guess I'm just going to be happy there. That's a good pick by Tyler. Judkins in the situation with the Bears is going to get the ball a whole lot. Now that brings me to my pick. I'll do like Colston Loveland, but I've already taken a tight end, so I'm really not in position. I wouldn't be in position here. I don't want to take two. So it leaves me, in my opinion, between Emeka Egbuka and the guy that I'm probably going to draft, which is Luther Burden to the Raiders, only because of the situation. Egbuka with the Seahawks, that scares me. Like Tyler made the point of Cooper Kupp. It sort of feels like the Rome situation with the Bears where they brought in a veteran. He's going to have to wait his time just a little bit before he gets a chance to get the ball as much as he should. Burden would then be walking into probably the worst wide receiver room in the NFL. So he's going to get a million chances there to get the ball. I think it's going to be Bowers and him. So I'm going to take Burden there. And I do think Burden is a better player than people are giving him credit for. I know his tape was not great this year. But if you go back 2 years, he was really good there. I think Burden's a good player. And I really think I want a piece of whoever the Raiders draft at wide receiver because they're going to get every opportunity in the world.
Yeah, you make a good point of where you see open availability. That's typically a good place to chase some points. I mean, we saw this situation switching positions with Tyrone Tracy last year. Goes into a backfield with just Devin Singletary, so there's a lot of opportunity for him to go and take. In this situation, Burden competing with basically just Jacoby Myers and a tight end and Brock Bowers. There's a lot to like about that situation. So I can't fault you at all, Coach. It is a little disappointing with Egbuka going to the Seahawks just because being a slot wide receiver throughout college, he's now going to compete with JSN, who's also spent a lot of time in the slot. So it'd be an interesting situation there. But, another name in this mock draft is Isaiah Bond, who went with the last pick in the 32nd round via trade to the Rams. That's kind of a surprising pick to me. I'm not exactly in love with Isaiah Bond's profile, nor did I necessarily like his tape. So I wouldn't quite go that far. Another player we didn't talk about is Quinn Ewers went in the second round of this mock draft to the Seattle Seahawks, which is that's a surprising pick to me. I wouldn't expect that to really happen. But I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka in this situation. I feel like it's probably the safest pick. He's been the most pro-ready player probably in this class just because he's been in Ohio State doing it for so long. He's been ready for this for years. And, he's Ohio State's all-time leading receiver in a lot of different categories, and that's probably going to shock a lot of people. But the guy's just going to step in and be a football player. He might not have the highest ceiling as maybe a guy like Burden, who's very explosive after the catch, but I do think he's a safe play.
Yeah, and I think this goes without saying. Like I've already said, I really liked him throughout the process and watching him in college. If you get him at the 201, I feel like it's a steal. Now, do I think he goes to the Seahawks? No, probably not, which means he's probably not going to be here, by the time the draft comes around and your rookie drafts especially, roll around. But if you can get him there, I feel like that's a great value regardless. I'm kind of torn here. I'll go ahead and put it out there. I'm torn between Colston Loveland, who went to the Broncos at the 20th pick in the first round here. I'm torn between him and another wide receiver that I'm really high on, and that's Trey Harris. In this mock, he went to the Commanders with the 61st pick in the second round. Listen, Matt can vouch for me here. After Terry McLaurin, there's nobody in that receiving room. Nobody. As much as they may want to say Zach Ertz he's old. The Senator, Ben Sinnott, cannot get involved because of Ertz being there. So I think I'm going to take a shot at it, and I'm going to go Trey Harris. I'm going to see if the deep threat can if he can step up to that wide receiver 2 role for Washington.
God, I know Matt's wishing he could talk about Trey Harris right now more than me.
Sure
He is the Trey Harris expert. And if you're a Commanders fan and you got Trey Harris in round 2, Matt would be doing cartwheels somewhere. He would love that scenario. That brings me to my pick, and I've got to say, if I'm picking right here at the 203, and Colston Loveland is sitting there, I feel like I would have to take him. Now, here's the problem. This landing spot to the Broncos is gross. Like, I would hate that with Evan Ingram. it's just not a great scenario to get early return. So I might be hesitant, but I just don't think the Broncos are going to take Colston Loveland there myself. I just don't. So if he goes to almost any other team that could use a tight end, then that's who I would draft right here. So give me Colston Loveland.
Colston Loveland, and in an alternative universe, he goes somewhere else. I'm with you, Coach. I would be shocked if they make that pick. I mean, obviously they signed Evan Ingram, I think he's 30, but that's by no means old in the tight end world. I mean, these guys play till they're 33, 34. And I have to talk about it, but Trey Harris to the Commanders, oh my gosh, that would be fantastic, boys. I'd buy a jersey that minute. So if that happens, Coach is right. I'm doing cartwheels somewhere. I'd be head over heels, man. So I'm really looking forward to that pick if it happens. But that puts me back on the board here, boys. The 204. I'm tough situation. Like I said, Isaiah Bond went to the Rams with the last pick in the first round. Not necessarily my favorite player there. We've got Quinn Ewers, who's a second round quarterback. And I think here, despite some interesting running back picks in the third round, I'm going to continue the wide receiver trend with this draft, and I'm going to go with Jalen Noel to the Cardinals. I think that is such a great fit. I do like Higgins, but Jalen Noel is a fantastic slot receiver, and I think he would pair so well with Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride. It kind of give a different level of player that Kyler hasn't really had his entire time in Arizona. So I would love Jalen Noel to fall and land with the Cardinals. I think he's explosive. If you go pull up his combine stats, he was first or second or third basically in every single metric that they measured. He's just a fantastic player. Like I said, playing alongside Jaden Higgins, he was very, very productive too, over 1,000 yards, scored like 8 or 10 touchdowns, something like that. So he's a good player, and I can't wait to see where he goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, any wide receiver that lands in Arizona, they're competing with Marv at that point and Trey McBride, who just got a massive contract extension. So congrats to him. But I think, like you said, it's a good fit. Moving on to the 205, I do want to point out one pick that I think he'll end up being higher, but it's just because of where he fell in this mock draft. Is Caleb Johnson, and in this instance, he fell to the Patriots all the way in the third round with the 69th pick. And I'll be honest, I don't really like the landing spot. I know they just paid Ramondre. Could he compete with Ramondre? Sure, but I'm not in love with the Patriots offense, no matter whether you tell me Drake May's good or not. And I think they just added Stephon Diggs too. So it doesn't really get me all riled up for Caleb Johnson. I just kind of wanted to explain why he's still on the board. I'm going to actually kind of pivot here a little bit, and this one is purely, I think, based on landing spot and probably the coaching philosophy. And I'm actually going to take Mason Taylor for the Chargers here. In this mock, he went 55th overall in the second round to the Chargers. Listen, we've already seen Jim Harbaugh. What does he want to do? He wants to run the ball. He wants to use his tight ends. He's already used Colston Loveland, and Mason Taylor has the pedigree. Is he the most overproductive or most productive in college? No. But I think he falls into a spot where he could start day one, and we're always chasing those tight ends who can get you points, and they're going to be in the game because they're good blockers. They're always there. They're open in the receiving game. So I would take Mason Taylor here and just see how it falls.
Yeah, and Harbaugh loves to use his tight ends too, so that would make this landing spot really, really good for Mason Taylor. That brings me to my pick, and I'm telling you, if I'm picking at 206, there's a guy here. This is an easy selection for me. Right here in the mock, the Browns take Tyler Shook in the third round at the 67th pick. And to me, there's no better situation for Tyler Shook than to go to the Browns in the third round right here, to go to Kevin Stefanski, who has had tons of success with high processing guys that can do a lot. I am really high on Tyler Shook. He's a way better athlete than people give him credit for. He has a huge arm. He's prototypical size. Like everything about him, people kind of got on board with him late. If he went to the third round to the Browns, you know what he's going to do? He's going to probably play. And to me, getting that value at 206 would be fantastic.
Yeah, it's not, too far off from where we saw Levis go and Malik Willis before that, where these guys get drafted in the second round. I understand it's the third, but they're walking into a situation where there's nobody else, so they're going to get the opportunity to play. You mentioned Tyler Shucks. He's surprisingly athletic. He's as fast or faster than Dart. He's faster than Shador. He's faster than Ward. He's got a ton of experience in college. He had the 3 injuries, but they were all bone breaks. They weren't necessarily anything to be worried about ligament damage or long-term issues that could, hinder him further down the road. He's an interesting prospect, man. He learned from several different offenses, and if you go back and watch his tape at Louisville, he was good. This past season, he played really good football. That Notre Dame game, he has 5 or 6 throws that are absolutely incredible. And the most important part to me of that is that Notre Dame secondary, a lot of them are going to be drafted, and a couple of them are probably going to be drafted in the first round. So he played his best in this past season. Yeah, he's older, but the quarterback position, who cares? So, Coach, I love that pick. That's who I was going to go with next if you didn't go. But that kind of leads me to a familiar territory, and I do want to hear Coach's thoughts on this because we just recorded a video 2 nights ago. Here I am at the 207. I'm back on the clock. And there's a wide receiver that was drafted in the first round still on the board. Isaiah Bond went to the Rams, 32nd overall. You could argue, there might be some other guys like Jalen Lane went to the Eagles, and then you can get to Jaden Higgins and Jack Betch, but I'm going to follow the money. And the money tells me that Isaiah Bond was someone that this team went out, traded up for, and made a pick. So I'm going to take Isaiah Bond and hope for the best. Coach, I think that kind of compares similar to what we were talking about with Ricky Pearsall just the other day. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, that's really a value pick right there. I mean, if you get a first round guy, this is essentially where Ricky Pearsall was going. He was a first round guy. Now, it took later in the year before he really got his opportunity. Bond, in this situation, if he went to the Rams, will get his opportunity a little bit sooner. So there's just value you can't turn away at 207 with a guy that got drafted in the first round, a skill position dude drafted in the first round. If you get him at 207, you got to be pleased. He's just going to get a million chances.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, you are back on the clock at the 208, so I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, first round wide receiver in the middle of the second round, that's value you can't really pass up. And so I'm actually, I was looking down through here at who would probably be my next pick. And I actually think you had just mentioned him, Matt, and I think it's probably where I'm going to go, and that's Jaden Higgins. He was drafted to the Jags with a 70th pick overall. I think I would take him here. He's probably my top-rated receiver that's left on the board here. And so I would take him here. There's a lot of vacated targets. I'm not really concerned. He could be behind Brian Thomas and be a wide receiver too, and I'd be perfectly happy with that. Evan Ingram left, so they're already looking to vacate a ton of targets, like I said. So give me Jaden Higgins here.
Yeah, I like that pick. Yeah, that's a good pick. He's a good player. I think that was going to pay off for you in the long run. He just is a good player. When I look at my pick here, Tyler said a lot of things I'm thinking when it comes to Caleb Johnson. That is not very attractive for me here, but I also don't see a lot of other names necessarily, except for one that really jumps out at me. And to me, that's Jadon Blue. He gets drafted by the Broncos. Lots of opportunity, a million chances coming his way there in Denver. And that's a guy I just can't pass up right here.
Well, Coach, you sniped me because that was going to be my next pick, but I did want to point out that Jaden Blue going to the Broncos, it just feels very similar to when they took Javonte Williams. Maybe I'm crazy there, but if you go pull Blue's tape, he's a fantastic pass catcher. You probably won't find a better pass catcher in this class. I mean, he's got several screens that he just takes to the house, little flare routes. I mean, he's dangerous out of the backfield. So it'd be interesting to see what they do and who they might pair him with if he, gets spelled on third down, or maybe he is the third down running back. But I'm with you, Coach. That's significant capital to a running back in the second round. So I like that pick, and I think it's a good pick for you. For me, I'm going to go with the guy Tyler was talking about earlier, and I'm going with Caleb Johnson. Yes, he went to the Patriots, not necessarily the best landing spot, but I'm also not too scared of Ramondre Stevenson in my mind. If Caleb Johnson can get in there and split carries with Ramondre, which wouldn't be that crazy to me, I think he could eventually take that job and earn that backfield. We know what Ramondre is, and we see cap casualties all the time. Yes, he signed a new contract, but this is also a new regime with a team that's trying to rebuild and refranchise themselves as, becoming a powerhouse like they used to be. And I don't think Ramondre is necessarily that guy. He's had his fumbling issues in the past, so I think Caleb Johnson is a guy you could pass the torch to, and he could definitely take off and, make a bunch of plays for this offense that's been dying for help for a young quarterback in Drake May.
Yeah, and I think you took the words right out of my mouth there. I mean, this is getting to the territory where you just take the talent. You take the bet on talent here. And I think that was a great pick. I might have taken him here. I see Devin Neal on top of the ADP list here. As much as I may like Devin Neal, he didn't get drafted in the top 5 rounds here. Spoiler alert. So he's probably not really going to be anything but a dart throw, maybe in the 3rd round for me at least. But that being said, as much as I hate to do this because I'm not really a believer in the talent, I don't necessarily think he's great as a quarterback, but you can't pass it up. And I'm going to take the value of Quinn Ewers being the, first or 3rd round or 3rd pick in the 2nd round to the Seahawks. We've watched Sam Darnold pumpkin before. And so I'm taking a stab at it and saying, you know what, if he pumpkins and he doesn't do well and, Cinderella's past midnight at this point, then I'm going to at least have Quinn Ewers there to give me a shot at a starting quarterback.
Yeah, and I just don't see that happening right here. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I would be shocked if Quinn Ewers goes this early and ahead of some of these other guys that we've mentioned. But I mean, if it does, there's value there, and I don't blame you there taking a shot. So that brings me to my guys. There's a lot of interesting things here. There's 2 guys that really jump out at me if I'm drafting right here. One is, and I hate to say this out loud, but if Jalen Milroe, there's a lot of talk that Jalen Milroe could go in the 1st round. I know it's scary. Like I don't think he's a good quarterback. I don't. I know Matt kind of feels the same way. Not sure about Tyler, but at the same time, if the guy was to go in the 1st round to someone, then you got to consider him with this pick. But I'm going to pivot off of that and go to a quarterback that I do think has a lot of potential, and I like the landing spot there too. Like I like Kyle McCord to the Steelers. Kyle McCord threw for over 4,000 yards, almost 4,800 yards, tons of touchdowns, threw I think like 12 interceptions, but at the same time, he's a bit of a gunslinger. He went to an offense which was wide open where he could stand there in the pocket and sling it around everywhere. And I do think that really helped him improve and get more pro ready. Steelers would be an interesting landing spot. So if I'm drafting right here, I would take Kyle McCord. I'm going to leave Milroe for Matt.
I totally agree with you, Coach. I mean, yeah, he threw something like 12 interceptions, but when you step back and look, I think he had like something like 550 pass attempts. I mean, the guy was an absolute gunslinger. They threw the ball all over the field, and he did it all season long. And there's a lot to like about Kyle McCord's profile. I mean, he did leave Ohio State, and he was kind of cast off for nothing. But if he falls in the 3rd round to the Steelers and say they do bring in Rodgers for 1 year, I would be interested. I mean, this is the kind of place where you say it's the 212. I might as well. It's between him or, Trevor Etienne or something like that. You did leave me Jalen Milroe at the 301, but guess what? I'm not doing it. I'm making someone else make that pick because, like Coach said, I just don't believe in it. I certainly could be wrong, and I hope I am for the young guy, but as it stands right now, I would be shocked if he gets drafted in the 1st round. And I would be shocked if he went to a situation like this with the Raiders, but you never know. So that puts me on the clock here at the 301, guys. And I'm going to go with Elijah Arroyo, Coach's guy from the Miami Hurricanes finds his way to the Indianapolis Colts in this situation in the 3rd round. I really like Arroyo. There's probably not a more athletic tight end in this entire class. I mean, yes, Warren is great. Loveland's awesome. Mason Taylor's a solid player. Elijah Arroyo has elite speed. I mean, he clocked one of the fastest times all season against Georgia Tech. He just ran right down the seam route, and he just was going like 23 miles an hour. The guy can absolutely fly. So if he finds his way with the Colts, don't love the landing spot because of the quarterback situation, but it's a wide open race for him there in that tight end room.
Yeah, I mean, quarterback spot, being a Colts fan, as much as I may hate to say it, it is a question mark, especially if we're going to end up with Daniel Jones, running our offense at some point. We've already seen what Daniel Jones can do, and if Anthony Richardson turns out to be worse than that, it's going to be a long year. So I kind of agree with you there. I'm actually going to take a stab here, and I'm just going to look at, we're kicking the old out in with the new. And I'm going to take Jack Betch here. He went to the Jets, 73rd overall. He's got Garrett Wilson to contend with. But Aaron Rodgers is gone. Sure, there's some questions at quarterback. Can Fields really do it? But I'm just betting on talent, and, really the wide receiver room I don't think is anything to compete with. So I think he could step in there, and I'll take a dart throw here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't hate that. I mean, there's a lot of potential there. A lot of potential there for targets, especially going into that offense. I do, man. This is a guy that I have lost my mind over multiple times because he reminds me of Quentin Johnston, who drives me crazy. But the talent is so. Excuse me, the athleticism is so abundant with Savion Williams to the Texans. And there's opportunity there with some of the injuries. So I'm going to go Savion Williams right here.
I mean, you mentioned it. He looks a lot like QJ, but man, he is an athletic monster. Like, the guy is fast. He can jump. If he can just catch the ball, and that's something he can work on, he can prove us all wrong, but he's got to put it in. So I don't hate that pick, Coach. I'm back on the clock here, and I'm going to dip in and probably take our first 4th round guy. And I'm going to go with Cam Scadaboo, who finds his way on the Tennessee Titans. And I like this pick because, 1, he's going to be there for several years, and I think he's a good football player. But 2, the competition in that room doesn't necessarily scare me. Yes, it's probably going to be Tony Pollard who's going to be leading this backfield to start. We've seen injuries for him in the past. Can he work his way up and take that 2nd spot? I think so. I don't think it's crazy that Cam Scadaboo finds his way into a healthy role in this Titans offense. I mean, again, they're trying to revamp everything, and you got Brian Callahan who's leading this offense, who, what does he love to do? He loves to run the ball. And Cam Scadaboo, I challenge you to find a guy who runs tougher than him. There's plenty of plays that he had, especially in the playoffs, where you just felt like he was going to lose 5 yards and he somehow scores a touchdown. I mean, the guy's an incredible football player, so I like Cam Scadaboo regardless of where he finds his way in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying he runs hard. Like you said, there were plays where it looked like he was going to lose yardage, and like you said, scored a touchdown. So if you're wanting somebody that runs hard, which I think the Titans, value because they had Derrick Henry for years, I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody better there. For this one, I'm actually going to take a page out of Pete's book here. I'm going to go RJ Harvey to the Browns. I think Nick Chubb is only getting older. He would really only have to compete with Jerome Ford at this point, which I think he could beat out. So give me RJ Harvey here at the 305.
Yeah, and Harvey's a really good athlete. Lots of speed there to burn. Lots of opportunity there too in Cleveland. I think that's a really solid pick. That's somebody to keep your eyes on. Is who does Cleveland take at running back? That's someone that's going to get some opportunities. So that brings me to my choice, and gosh, there's a lot of options here. I think I'm going to go with maybe Matt's favorite player I had to listen to him talk about this dude for a month. Matt's already I see it. We have a spreadsheet going here. Matt already knows where I'm headed. He's going to tell you about the world's greatest tight end. Harold Fannin Jr. here. That's who I'm taking.
I love that pick, Coach. I mean, here's the thing: if Harold Fannin finds his way on the Giants, there's opportunity, man. I mean, there just
Hey,
is. If you
look,
look at that,
as long as he doesn't have to block, he might be all right.
yeah, I mean that he knows his limitations. He's smaller than most of these other tight ends. When he went to the combine, he was third or fourth in a lot of the athletic metrics, just the 40 or the 3-cone, 10-yard splits, all that stuff. But man, go put on his tape. He absolutely tore up Texas A&M. He tore up Penn State. I mean, the guy had like almost 300 yards and 20-something catches in those 2 games alone. He carried Bowling Green's offense. FBS records galore for receiving yards, receptions, broken tackles as a tight end. The guy is a monster in space. I hope he finds his way into a role where, like Coach said, he doesn't have to put his hand in the dirt too much. You can put him in the backfield, let him be an H-back, spread him out wide, let this guy run routes and get in space because he'll make people look silly. He'll run through them, around them, and just bounce off people. I love Harold Fannin Jr. His tape was an absolute blast to watch, so I highly recommend it. But that puts me back on the clock at the 307. And, do I take Jalen Milroe here? It feels like it's just fallen value here. But I can't convince myself to do it. I'm actually going to go with Jalen Lane. Jalen Lane found his way to the Eagles in this mock draft. He was the last pick of the 2nd round. Some people like Jalen Lane's profile, some people don't. I just think that given the situation of where he went, I'm interested in having him on my roster. Is he even on here?
Oh, that would be gold
I don't
if
think
he's
he's on
not
here.
on there.
Yeah.
Even
don't
better.
think he's on
Even
there.
better.
There
That's
you
how
go.
deep. That's what you get from the mediators. Deep
There you
dives,
go. Yeah.
man.
He is not even on Sleeper yet. So I'm just going to pick a random name and just set him as that. But that's our placeholder for Jalen Lane, guys.
There you go.
So Tyler, you are back on the clock.
That's
Congratulations,
amazing.
Mr. Knox.
There you go. So I am actually kind of going to pivot here, follow the way that I was going before with the previous pick of RJ Harvey. I'm actually going to go down, and this is more of really depending on what your team looks like. If you have one player in particular, I think you have to take this person. If you are a Christian McCaffrey owner, if you do not go get Dylan Sampson, you're probably not doing great at managing your team. We've already seen, years where McCaffrey is down and the backup come in and play a huge role. They lost Jordan Mason. So give me Dylan Sampson, who could step in, especially if McCaffrey goes down or have a limited workload, and just let me get those extra snaps.
Yeah, I can't blame you there. I mean, there's golden opportunity. Like Tootin right here. I would like Tootin in my spot right here with the Vikings, just because Aaron Jones is, he's aging. There would be opportunity there for him to possibly come in and help. But I do feel like right here, I cannot pass up Jalen Milroe at this point. I mean, especially if the dude was to go in the 1st round, it means that means he's going to have to play. I'm gonna take him right here.
Again, making a responsible pick. I'm very impressed with Coach. We're ordinarily very strong in our convictions about quarterbacks, but he's breaking that trend. So props to you, Coach, for stepping outside of your comfort zone and adding Jalen Milroe to your roster here. But I'm up at the 310. It's my last pick, guys.
First of all, I'm the only guy taking quarterbacks around here. I've got like 3 of them, maybe 4 at this point that I've picked here.
You did take a lot. I don't think I took one, to be honest.
I took 2.
But that's what Coach does. If you go look at his rosters, he's got 6 quarterbacks in some leagues. The guy hoards them, and he'll try and move them, and he certainly will trade. So, but let's just kind of recap here before we get to our last picks, guys. Who's left on the board? We got Trevor Etienne, who found his way to the Chargers. We've got Terrence Ferguson, tight end from Oregon, who went to the Jaguars. Ty Felton, the wide receiver from Maryland, ends up with the Ravens. Rhonda Gadsden to the Dolphins. Jalen Royals to the Patriots. Will Howard to the Saints. Elikai Manor to the Panthers. But, I think I'm going to go a little bit further down, and I'm actually going to dip into the 5th round here, guys. And I'm going to take a guy who I think has sneaky production, who's very productive in college, has the ability to kind of step in and maybe even spell for an older running back in Joe Mixon. I'm going to take Taj Brooks, who finds his way on the Texans roster, going in the 5th round. There's value there to me. I think he could find his way on the field, and he's one of those guys who just produce. He's one of the few running backs, one of two, with Ashton Genty, who had 100 rushing yards in every single game. And if you go back, Taj Brooks has had 1,000-yard seasons, I think, 3 years in a row. So he's a fantastic player. I really like Taj. So I would be happy if he found his way in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. I mean, anybody who can back up a high-profile running back, kind of similar to my pick of Dylan Sampson, I think that's a no-brainer there. With my last pick, I'm going, just upside of somebody who could probably, or I don't want to say take over, but get a fair share of the workload. And I'll take Elikai Manor out of Stanford on the Panthers here. I mean, he's got to compete with Leggett. Other than that, I think, Tyler Warren was there in this mock, so he would have to compete there too. But I'll take the shot. It's somebody who could work out. He's big. He's a red zone threat. And players like that always, they always have a shot to give you at least some fantasy points.
Yeah, a great opportunity in Carolina. It's really Leggett, Coker, Thielen. He definitely would get an opportunity there. So it brings me to 312. I can tell you if I get to 312 and this guy is not chosen yet, I'm taking him. I don't want to hear a single freaking thing about his 40 time. I want to talk about his production. I mean, all-time leading receiver at the University of Miami. Right here, Matt. Give me Xavier Restrepo at the 312. Slot machine. Best route runner in the draft. He had a bit of a hammy on his pro day. I mean, come on. Give the guy a break. He fought through a hamstring injury. He's a slot machine. Just throw him the ball. He's going to get open on 3rd down. Xavier Restrepo at the 312.
He's not even on our spreadsheet.
Let's go.
Xavier Restrepo closes out our draft. I'm not sure there's a more perfect ending than the coach himself picking a guy from the U, and on top of that, he gets one of his favorite players in Xavier Restrepo. Coach, if I had to tell you right now that he found his way, and I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good landing spot. If he landed with the Texans, how high would you draft him?
Somewhere in the 3rd round. That's what I mean. Somewhere in the 3rd round. I think that's probably where he is, 3rd or 4th round. I mean, I'm not stupid, but at the same time, like, he is a great route runner. He does catch every single thing. He's quicker than he is fast. He plays faster than his 40 time. I mean, all those things are very apparent. Puka Nacua is pretty good too, and he plays way faster than his 40 time, for instance. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying he's Puka, but I'm just saying, for example, it can happen.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's going to round out our draft here, everyone. I mean, you got the board here. Let's just kind of go back through it here for a second. We'll each pick our favorite pick. So, Coach, I'm going to start with you since you're just riding high horse here. What's your favorite pick of this entire draft here?
Oh, my favorite pick is probably, Tyler Shook in the middle of the 2nd round. Like, give me him. Give me him. I like that land spot to the Browns. That would be a dream scenario for me as a drafter right there. But even if I was a Cleveland Browns fan, like, just imagine if you could draft Travis Hunter and then wait to the 3rd round and get a guy with this kind of potential and talent. If you're the Cleveland Browns, you'd be loving life.
Yeah, I talk about a cheap ad too. Tyler, what about you? What's your favorite pick of this draft you got here?
probably out of the entire draft, just talking about value and somebody who could become the one in their room, I'd probably go Luther Burden here to the Raiders at the very end of the first. I think it's great value, pushing the quarterbacks down the board far enough already, and you're just going to get those wide receivers falling more and more. So I'd probably take that. That'd be my favorite pick there.
Yeah, for me,
thank you.
I have a tough.
Thank you. Your favorite pick was my pick.
Well, we don't want to hype him up too much, but I'm going to, which really sucks. My
Jalen
favorite pick of
Milroe.
this draft
Oh.
is no, it's not Jalen Milroe. It's actually going to be Shador Sanders at the 108. I think, as we said throughout this entire draft, if the quarterbacks get this type of investment, as we saw in this mock, it's tough to argue. I mean, the 108, if you're getting a starting quarterback who we know is going to be the future of a franchise tied with Malik Neighbors, that's tough to pass up, man. Like, there's a lot of value there. And even if he struggles right out the gate, he's probably going to get a pass. So we saw Daniel Jones got a second contract. What can, Deion Sanders' son get? So I really like that pick by Coach of Shador Sanders at the 108.
That was actually my pick.
Oh, sorry. Tyler's pick. I gave Coach all the credit. It wasn't Coach. It was Tyler. Well done, Tyler.
There is so much value in first round quarterbacks. Like there is so much, that all he's got to do is play okay in year one, and you can get the return plus on what you got him, especially where he was taken at 108. I mean, man.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guys, we have hit the 50-minute mark, so I want to close out by talking about a few players that we've been, thinking about here recently, and what we might do for trade values. And I'm going to kick us off with Kyren Williams. Tyler and I have been going back and forth in some deals in the league that we're co-managing a team to go get Kyren Williams. We traded Jalen Waddle in the 307 to go get Kyren Williams. Now, I think in my eyes, those two players are kind of a wash. I find them very similar. Their startup ADP value is pretty close. But, I'm going to kick it to Coach. What are your thoughts on Kyren Williams? And specifically, what do you think about that trade that we made? Is that a good deal for us, or do you think we kind of overpaid a little bit?
No, I mean, I would do that all day to get Kyren Williams. Like, I think I'm really high on Kyren Williams. He always produces. It's like he gets wrote off every year by the fantasy world, and Kyren Williams still comes on strong. Waddle, on the other hand, continues to underwhelm, in my opinion. I don't see that changing anytime soon. He is who he is. I just think top flight running backs are something you really need in order to win the championship. So I would love to have Kyren Williams for that.
All right, Tyler, any player that's on your mind that you want to talk about real quick?
Yeah, I think probably my biggest player I'd like to talk about in terms of, we've had conversations about him is probably Chase Brown. I think he's probably a sale right now. The opportunities or the chance that he gets replaced in the draft, I think it's pretty high, or at least competition added. So for me, I think that's one that you sell. If you get anywhere in the first for him, I'd probably take it. Maybe late half of the first is probably like if you're getting past the 110, I might consider not trading it. But that's one guy that I think probably selling is a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, we pull up the Dynasty Data Lab here. Chase Brown, 59th overall. He's between the 105 and the 106. Personally, I don't think you'd get the 105 or the 106 for Chase Brown, but I've been very adamant about Chase Brown getting replaced since last season. I know Pete makes fun of me a lot for that. So it's a tough situation for a Bengals running back. There's a lot of value there, but we saw them looking for another option all season long. The signs were there. Coach pointed out numerous times they were putting two tight ends on the field just trying to protect Joe Burrow because that's not Chase Brown's strong suit. He's a great third down back, and I think he has a role in this offense, but I don't think he can be a bell cow, and that's how he was being used.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I do think he's going to have value still, regardless of who they draft. I mean, I still think Chase Brown's a useful player. Probably not what everybody thinks, but a couple situations that I'm interested in that I've got my eye on It's obviously the Cowboys running back situation. I'm intrigued by Javonte Williams there a little bit. I'm not saying he's going to be amazing, but I do think there's opportunity there depending on who the Cowboys draft for Javonte Williams. But another situation I'm really interested in is the Chiefs running back situation. What's the status of Pacheco? Like, is he good? Like, after watching him when he came back last year, there's a lot of questions on how good he is. I found myself adding Elijah Mitchell the other day, wondering, this dude might, he might get some carries in Kansas City. I'm just curious as is this just something to keep an eye on? So what's going on in that Chiefs running back room and what's going on in the Cowboys running back room?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned two players there. Let's start with Javonte Williams added to the Cowboys on a real cheap deal. I mean, it's a team-friendly deal. If they draft someone high, then yeah, he's probably a complimentary back. But if they don't draft someone and they kind of kick the can down the road and, draft someone in the 4th, 5th round, I see a world where he becomes the starter, at least at the beginning of the season. And there's fantasy value in that in Dallas. So I'm with you, Coach. That's a situation to monitor to see what Dallas actually does. Now, the second situation you mentioned in Kansas City, Isaiah Pacheco, we saw him come back and he didn't necessarily perform well. The team re-signed Kareem Hunt, who's back, going to continue to produce in this offense. I think they like him. Being re-signed says a lot to me, but I do think there's something to be said that Pacheco was not fully healthy when he came back this past season. So I would be interested, like you said, to see if they add someone. Because if they add a third person in the mix, then it's going to get really murky. If they don't add anyone, then Pacheco might be someone that we should be looking to buy as we head into the season, just because he's competing with a 30-something-year-old Kareem Hunt. Maybe Kareem Hunt's not quite 30, but he's definitely older, and he has more seasons and wear and tear under him. So, Coach, I'm with you there.
Well, especially if they don't draft anybody, then Pacheco's value is extremely low right now compared to what it was last year. And I do think he's going to come back this season better with more time to heal from his injury. I just think he's going to play better than he played last year. So that's something to keep an eye on without a doubt.
Yeah, I totally agree. Coach, if we're going to talk about some running backs, let's talk about some wide receivers here. We had our show the other day where we talked about to go out and buy Rome Odunze. I want to ask you some questions about DJ Moore. You're the Bears fan. You've watched a lot of Caleb Williams. You've got a lot to say. But what's your thoughts on DJ Moore? I mean, do you see him as being a viable wide receiver 1 for your team, or is he someone that's more akin to being a wide receiver 2 or 3?
I think he's a wide receiver 2 in a fantasy room now. I do think Rome's going to steal some of his shine, but now DJ Moore is a classic case of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. He's going to complain. He's going to make things an issue if he doesn't get the ball, to the point where he's going to get the ball or he's going to get moved like he did out of Carolina. I mean, I think that played a part in that. So I do think he's going to get the ball. I mean, you can't have him on your team if you're not going to give him the ball. But I think he's a wide receiver 2 in fantasy world right now. I do still think Rome is a major buy.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think that where DJ Moore is going right now, I mean, he's kind of closer to wide receiver 25-ish for me than he is being a true, high-end wide receiver 2. We've talked several times about all the bubble screens and little tunnel screens that he got there. And maybe that changes with Ben Johnson coming into town. But I do think that Rome Odunze is in for some positive regression, both in targets, yards, touchdowns, everything. We got Keenan Allen leaving. We did a whole video. You can go find it on the Faceoff Sports Network page where we break down Rome. But talking about DJ Moore, I kind of think I'd be interested in selling him unless you can get him cheap. If you told me you could go and get him for maybe like a mid-second or an early second, I would be interested if I needed to add some wide receiver depth to my team. Because like you said, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we know that DJ Moore is going to be a guy that's going to step in and try and get the targets going for him.
Yeah, and if talk about another receiver, I know we also did a video on DK Metcalf. We talked about him being a sell. So I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are on George Pickens' value as a result of DK Metcalf.
Yeah, I mean, George Pickens' value, I think, is still kind of in that holding pattern for me. I'm not going to go out and buy him just given the situation that's happening in Pittsburgh. I mean, yes, they went out and acquired DK Metcalf, who we talked about as a sell. You can go watch that in another video. But there's no quarterback in Pittsburgh right now. We don't know who that's going to be. Do they draft someone? Possibly. Is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? My gut tells me probably. But that shouldn't necessarily give you all the hope in the world. I mean, he was with the Jets this past season where he had Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall. He had his buddy Devontae Adams, and things did not go as planned. George Pickens and DK Metcalf do a lot of the similar things. Like they do the same things well, and they do the same things poorly too. So I don't necessarily see them as complements to each other, more of just hindrances. There's a lot of ego in that wide receiver room too. So I just wouldn't necessarily go out buying George Pickens at this moment. His value, I think, would be somewhere in the late first range. You might be able to go and get him, but it's a risky buy right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. The quarterback situation is the issue there for both of them in particular, but especially since they're similar players, like you said. So another guy I wanted to bring up too, and I'd like to get, and Tyler's back now, I want to get his opinion on this guy too. But he just had the best season of his career yet. Is Jerry Jeudy. Like what is his value currently?
Yeah, we'll kick it to Tyler here, who just stepped back in. You're still muted if you are ready, Tyler. But Jerry Jeudy to me he's an interesting case. I think his past season was a little inflated. I haven't necessarily been the biggest fan, but Tyler, do you have any thoughts on Jerry Jeudy?
Wide receiver 15, half PPR. Wide receiver 12 in PPR. Far and away his best season yet.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Tyler? What would you? Oh, we've lost him.
I think we lost his
Matt.
audio.
Then. Matt, what would you be willing to pay for Jerry Jeudy?
I think if I'm buying Jerry Jeudy, I'd probably be looking to move a early second. I don't know personally if I would be willing to pay that price and buy him. I'm just not necessarily the biggest believer in Jerry Jeudy. I think a lot of it just had to do with situation. I mean, we had the perfect storm of Jameis Winston, who was just throwing the ball all over the field all the time, while also not necessarily having any person to compete with. I don't hate it if you have, let's say you got the 205 and you've got all sorts of picks and you want a depth piece, then that's absolutely a move I'd be comfortable doing. But I'm not going to go and add Jerry Jeudy with the hopes that he's going to be my wide receiver 3 because I'm not ready to make that bet. But I'll kick it back to you, Coach. Would you be willing to lay it out that he can be your wide receiver 3?
Yeah. I would pay a mid-second for him. I am not as high on this draft as some people are. I'm really not high on the wide receivers in this draft as a whole. I just would rather have Jerry Jeudy at 25 years old than the mid-second I would get most likely. I mean, obviously there's a couple guys in there, depending on how the draft falls, that I would like. But I would rather have him than Jaden Higgins, for example. Like somebody I'm going to get mid-second round. Like I would rather have Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I'm with you, Coach. But let's talk about one last player before we jump off here, and I want to talk about Devontae Smith. Pete and I had a little bit of a discussion about a week or so ago on Devontae Smith. Is he someone that you'd be buying, Coach, or what would you do with him if you had him on your roster or if you were looking to acquire him?
Yeah, for the right price, I would buy Devontae Smith. The A.J. Brown thing, he steals a lot of Smith's shine. Smith can be a roller coaster ride at times. Heavy produce one week, not a lot the next. That makes him a little scary at times. But I would buy him for the right price. I'm not real sure how much I would pay for him. Tyler, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. If you can get him for a cheap price because somebody's thinking that AJ Brown just is going to outshine him for forever, then I would probably go there. Looking at the Dynasty Data Lab, he's like wide receiver 18 as far as ADP startup goes. One guy that I think if we're actually selling Devontae Smith that I might pivot for is actually Rashee Rice. He's the wide receiver 15. I think you could get a plus there. Maybe like a second or third or something. So I see them kind of similarly. One's just coming off of an injury versus the other one is not. So that's kind of where I look at it. I think it depends on what you're looking for or what your team build is.
I think the biggest thing with Devontae Smith is we kind of just undervalue him. Like Coach said, AJ Brown is there, so he takes a lot of the thunder. I mean, he's certainly a big play guy, but Devonta Smith averaged 15 points in PPR leagues this past season. Yeah, he was wide receiver 30 on the year, but he only played in 13 games. When he's out there, he's very, very good. I mean, 3 years ago, he was a top 12 wide receiver. He finished 10th overall. The year before that, he finished 20th overall. I think he's comfortably in that safe wide receiver 2 zone. I understand that 30 is technically a wide receiver 3, but in points per game, he's a wide receiver 2. So I'm comfortable with Devonta Smith. I'm not necessarily shopping him. He's only 26 years old. He's tied to Jalen Hurts. So he's someone that I would be looking to just check the value on and see if the owner might be selling him at a discount, and you can, take advantage of an opportunity in my eyes.
Would you be comfortable trading Jalen Waddle in an early third for Devonta Smith?
100%. 100%. I think Devonta Smith is in a tier above Jalen Waddle. Tyler and I talked about this off air, I believe, where we were going through our trade that we were doing with Jalen Waddle. I think a lot of it is just predicated on that first year he had, and we got the roll in here who says Waddle over Devonta Smith. You're probably not alone. I don't know where Coach falls on that, but in my opinion, a lot of it is just predicated on that first year of Waddle where he had 140 targets and he caught 110 catches or something like that. That's a ton of production, but it hasn't necessarily kept going. I mean, he's had some injuries in the past few years, so that's something to monitor and keep an eye on. Tua's got the injuries, so there's just a lot of factors that kind of scare me from that Miami offense, where I feel that Devonta Smith is a lot safer and he's a better play. I mean, I can quickly pull up his points per game here, so give me 1 second and I can tell you. But this past season, he averaged under 10 points per game in PPR leagues. And like I said, Devonta Smith was 15 points. So I'm pretty comfortable in having Devonta Smith over Jalen Waddle. But go ahead, Coach.
Do you feel differently? Would you feel differently if Tyreek Hill forces his way out of there?
It would be interesting. I think that's definitely a big point to that too. I mean, Tyreek Hill is going to be a guy that's going to get his touches and get his opportunities. If he does leave or find his way out of Miami, it opens up that offense a little bit more. But I don't know if I'm still necessarily to the point where I can just bank on Waddle just absorbing all this production. Is that something that you would be interested in?
That's interesting, but he played 15 games last year, but he was wide receiver 46 last year. Year before, he was wide receiver 34. Now he played 14 games, but still, that production is extremely poor there, especially for the hype. And there's there's a lot of hype around Waddle, and he just hasn't produced.
The issue is, though, whether or not Tyreek is there or not, you're still having to deal with Tua's health concerns, regardless. I mean, and if Tua goes down again, who's the quarterback? I mean, is it Skylar Thompson? Is he even still on the team? What's his name? Tyler Huntley? Is he still on the team? Like, is that your best option? You know what I mean? Unless they get like a rookie late. But I to the point now where, as much of a Waddle fan as I was, I really don't want to have to deal with that. Just for
Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's the backup now.
Okay, well, I don't want to deal with Zach Wilson as my quarterback either. So,
well, Coach, let me kick it back to you. I mean, you brought up this Waddle part here. Would you rather have Waddle or Jameson Williams?
Jameson Williams, I think. Jameson Williams. Well,
okay.
And Tyler brought up a good point about Tua's injuries. I mean, Tua played 11 games this past year. The year before, he played 17 the year before. Then it's 13, 13, and 10. When Tua's not out there, it's a disaster, and Waddle can't get the ball. I don't want any part of that.
Yeah. Tyler, would you rather have Jameson Williams or Waddle?
JMO, 100%.
I think for me, it would be team dependent. But it's close. And, if I'm looking for the upside swing, it's obviously Jameson Williams. But let's just make it a little bit harder. Coach, would you rather have Jalen Waddle or Terry McLaurin?
Well, if my team's contending, I want Terry McLaurin all day, every day. It's not even close for me. Okay. I mean, if my team's rebuilding, I'd keep the younger guy.
Sure. Tyler, same thing?
Yep. same process.
Okay. Last one here: Zay Flowers or Jalen Waddle?
Zay Flowers. Easily.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a
The only
Flowers
that's a
for me
right.
too.
Yeah, the only one he's competing with is Mark Andrews and likely currently, and randomly Rashad Bateman last year. But I'll take Zay Flowers for that.
It's a good point.
Okay,
Can
so
Bateman do that again? Go ahead, Coach.
I'm gonna pivot just a second here. I want to ask. I'm asking this for a friend. You know, I don't know anyone. I'm asking this for me. Tua. So I'm a Tua owner. What do you guys think I can get for him? I need him off my roster. What can I get for him?
Man, first of all, I want to say I wish Pete was in here because I sent Pete a hilarious text about you being a Tua owner the other day. So I'll have to get him to come back and watch this. But Tyler, go ahead. You threw your hand up, so I think you've got a value.
Yeah, I think a second. I think if you can get a second, I think you take it, honestly.
You think I could get a second?
I think you could get a late one.
Can I
Here's
get
the
yours?
thing for me.
No.
I think Tua's value is more than a second. I mean, we're talking about a starting quarterback, but the problem is you have to find someone who's willing to pay the price to get Tua. And let me tell you, there is nothing scarier than staring at a deal that has Tua heading your way and you have to hit accept. I think his value is closer to a late first, but I don't think anybody's going to pay that. I know I wouldn't pay that because it's scary. And, we just did our mock draft. We had 2 quarterbacks go at the end of the first round. So would you rather have Shador Sanders or, Jackson Dart or Tua, Coach?
I mean, I would rather have the younger guy without the health concerns.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, I mean, I've traded for him multiple times, traded him away multiple times. That's sort of what I do. But that being said, when Tua plays, Tua's pretty good. Like he's a pretty good quarterback when he plays. The offense is solid around him. The coach does a good job scheming it up, and he is really productive when he plays. The problem is he doesn't play all the time, and that's an issue. And just the fear that it could be over at any moment. I do think I would take a mid-second for him, especially if I knew like the draft we just did. If I could get Shook out of it for Tua in a situation where he might get to play right now in the middle of the second round, oh my God, I'd jump all over that.
I'll trade you the 211.
Mediator trades on the live stream. Let's go.
On the live stream. Think about it, Coach.
I'll think about it. I'll think about it. Let's see who's available at 211. I might do it.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking quarterbacks. So let's kick it to y'all where you're in Carolina country. What are we doing with Bryce Young? Are you guys buying? Are you selling? I mean, we saw the rehab of his career this past season. Dave Canales has kind of looked like he's kind of tapped in some possible potential. In the mock draft we just did, they had Tyler Warren going to them at the 9th pick, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's some value there for him if he's got, Tyler Warren. Obviously, we've got Chuba Hubbard. They brought in another running back. Am I wrong?
They brought in Rico
Dowdle. Yeah.
Rico. That's right. Rico. So Rico's coming into town to be a compliment with Chuba. Obviously, Brooks has been injured. You got Xavier Legette and Adam Thielen. I'll start with you, Coach. What's your thoughts on Bryce Young? Would you be willing to buy him, or are you holding him?
I think I'm going to hold him for the way he finished the season, but I do think people are way too excited about that too. Like, he played well. I get it. He did play well down the stretch, but he was also. I love this narrative of he got benched and it fixed everything. No, it didn't. Like, that didn't save him for sitting a couple games and watching someone else play. It didn't. Now, his experience throughout the whole, maybe he just played a little better. I don't think sitting over there and watching for a couple weeks magically made him a great quarterback. He always had potential. He's still a little small. I mean, there are still some issues there. But at the same time, his value seems to have gone up farther than I would probably be willing to pay because the hype on him has gotten higher than I would have thought it to be. If I've got him, I'm going to hold because I want to know if that's real. You got to give me a few games to see if that's real or not. So there's no doubt about that. But if I could get him on the cheap, I would do it, but I wouldn't pay a premium for him.
Yeah, what about you, Tyler?
Well, I'm just kind of curious, Coach. What do you think his value is currently?
Whew. I mean, I think he's got first round value. I mean, especially with the way he finished the year. I mean, you about got to get a mid first for him at least, maybe more.
Yep.
See,
I'm not
that's
paying.
probably
I wouldn't pay it. I wouldn't pay it.
Yeah, that's probably a little too much for me. I think it's interesting, depending on your team build. I really do. If you've already got two solid quarterbacks and you need a bench piece that you're hoping works out, I think you can do that, but not at the price tag of a mid first. I was trying to look on the Dynasty Data Lab real quick. Just kind of
between the 106 and 107.
Yeah. And
so I mean, if you've got Bryce Young is on either of your teams, would you trade him for the 107?
Easily.
Depending on how the board fell, yeah, probably.
Wow.
I don't even care about the board. Yes. I would.
Really?
I think you raised the point of there is a lot to be excited about in Carolina with what kind of changed and what's gone, been corrected for him, or at least to an extent corrected. But that roster's still not very good. I mean, if they did add Tyler Warren, that's certainly a threat, but it's still just a tight end. If you told me this team added maybe a Tet McMillan at the 109, it's interesting because you'd have a guy that can get open in Thielen who's going to be quick, shifty, and then you have a big play target who's, just throw it up there because you already mentioned the height. That's an issue. I mean, we've seen small quarterbacks struggle, and Bryce Young is tiny. I mean, he's tiny. He can't see over the line, and I think that's a major issue for him going forward. He needs some help, and that doesn't mean he can't get it and he can't correct it, but I think this team needs a lot more than just Ja'Tavion Sanders, Rico Dowdle, Chuba Hubbard, and Adam Thielen to produce.
No, their offensive line is really good. Now, Matt, their offensive line is really good. That's something to consider. They're really good. Top 10 in the league offensive line, especially in the run game.
Yeah.
They can run the football. So outside of, let's just take Cam Ward away. Are there any of these quarterbacks you would take right now over Bryce Young? You would rather have that rookie quarterback over Bryce Young?
That's a good question. Knowing the landing spots or just based off profile alone?
Profile alone. Let's just assume Shador and Jackson Dart both go in the first round to your choice of team. I don't care who. Which one of those would you rather have? One of those two guys over Bryce Young?
I think I'd almost rather roll the dice on both of them. I think I would take Dart and Shador over Bryce Young. And I hate to discredit Bryce, but it's just kind of a combination of the size. There's already been issues where he's been benched. He's in Carolina where things just aren't going great. Ownership's not perfect. You got question marks all over the place. Age all over the place is an issue. And then not to mention that defense is terrible. They can't stop anybody. So we know if Bryce Young is going to win games, they're probably going to have to average 28 to 30 something points a game. So I don't know if Carolina's fit to do
fool's
that.
gold. The end of the season was fool's gold, I guess.
I don't know if it's fool's gold or if it's more just kind of an indication of what he can be. And that team is not built on Bryce saving them, more as Bryce just being kind of a game manager.
Well, something else to take into account here too is that division is horrendous defensively, especially. The Falcons can't stop anybody. The Bucs can't stop anybody. So I mean that played a part too down the stretch.
Well, and I think so. So I do I think it depends, like I said, on team, team build. I've got two trades that I found. I just kind of want to get you guys' opinion. So first one is straight up. It's either Bryce Young or a 2026 first. How do you guys feel about that one?
Bryce Young or 2026 first? I mean, it depends on my roster. If I'm competing and, Bryce Young is my QB3, maybe. If Bryce Young is my QB2 or my possible QB2, because I've got another question mark and maybe like a Geno Smith or a Sam Darnold, Probably not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Coach, what
to
about
me
you?
it depends on where. To me, it depends on where that first is. Where I think it's going to be. I would trade Bryce. Excuse me, I would not trade Bryce Young for a late 25 first right now. I wouldn't. Mid first, I would have to think long and hard about it, to be honest. So I probably wouldn't for a 26 first, especially if it's mid to late. Not right now. I
Okay.
gotta see I gotta see what he's gonna do.
I got you. So the other one that I thought was kind of interesting, I think I know where you guys are going to go, but Bryce Young in a 2025 second. It doesn't say where it's at, mid or let's say mid. Bryce in a mid 2025 second for Jordan Love. You paying that?
Oof.
Oh yeah. To get Jordan Love, is that the
Mhm.
question? Oh yeah, I'd rather have Jordan Love than a mid second and Bryce Young.
I think I'd rather have Bryce Young. I'm not a Jordan Love believer. Jordan Love was a trash can down the stretch, bro. He
He's
was
also
not
coming
good down
from
the
a
stretch.
Bears fan.
Yeah, okay, valid.
True.
And he lost to the Bears. Let's not forget. Let's not forget. The Packers haven't lost to the Bears in a gazillion years until Jordan Love was their quarterback. True or false?
Confirmed. It is a gazillion years.
Please fifth.
But currently, as we stand, we won the last one, and Jordan Love was playing quarterback. Like I'm not sold on Jordan Love. I'm not.
I mean,
Anyway.
if you pull up Bryce Young's finish to the year, I mean, like you said, he had a great year. He had 36 points in Week 18 against the Falcons. They can't play defense. He had 17 points against Tampa Bay. He had 27 points against Arizona, who could play defense. And then it's a string of 13, 14, 15-point games with a 23-point game against, again, Tampa Bay. So I am just a little concerned that it might be a little bit of fool's gold. But I wouldn't necessarily go out there and hang my hat on Bryce Young being anything to start in my fantasy lineup right away.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say if you were going to predict Bryce Young's season, where will he finish the year? Quarterback 2015.
QB 23.
18 is the first
Right.
number that popped in my head.
Okay, Tyler says 18. Jordan Love finished the year last year QB 17.
Ooh. About to pull that up. Go ahead, coach. Keep cooking.
Oh, it's true. There you go. Now if you pull it up, you're gonna show that in 23 he played really well. He was QB 5 last year, QB 17. What's the difference? I'm not real sure exactly. What
He had
the
almost
difference is.
1,000 more yards in 23, so that's a big push for him.
Yeah.
He had 7 more touchdowns in 2023. So I mean that
Same
certainly
amount of
helps.
interceptions.
Same amount of interceptions, but Bryce Young in 16 games in 2023 as a rookie, 11 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. This past season in 14 appearances, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So, and I don't. Would you expect Bryce Young to eclipse 20 touchdowns? I don't. If he
I don't know,
started
maybe
17
so.
games
Okay,
right now,
so let me ask you this. I'm gonna pivot again then, because since you brought up the Jordan Love thing, and you're obviously a fan. Would you rather have Caleb Williams or Jordan Love?
Caleb Williams.
He was QB
There's a lot
16.
more promise.
He was
There's
QB
a lot more
16.
promise to me in Chicago. I mean, you've got a new coach, completely revamped offensive line. He's got weapons everywhere, and we all pretty much expect the 10th pick to be another pick to help them. I mean, if you look at mocks all over the place, it's not them drafting a defensive guy. It's either been a left tackle or Ashton Genty or, some other pick to help them, maybe even a Tyler Warren. So I think that the Bears are going to take someone to solidify this offense and let Ben Johnson cook to make sure Caleb's the guy. So I'd rather have Caleb Williams.
Do you see a world where Caleb Williams is worse this year than he was this past year?
It's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, and he was QB 16, right? Threw 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. In what was, worldwide considered a horrendous year by the Chicago offense. And it was if you watched them play, right? And he still was QB 16. He still finished the year higher than Jordan Love.
Tyler, what would you take, Williams or Jordan Love?
Yeah, I would take Caleb Williams. He's still on the trajectory where he could go upwards. We might have already seen Jordan Love's ceiling here, so I'd take Caleb Williams.
That
Yeah,
kind of brings me back to Bryce Young. Like, to me, Bryce Young's in the conversation with those two guys. To me,
wow, that's surprising to me.
I mean,
I
he's in the
think Caleb
conversation.
Williams-
Like,
Go ahead.
I know. I mean, I'm just saying he's in the conversation. I mean, he had a good finish to the year. Canales is a good coach. The offensive line is solid. You know, I just think there's some things to like about Bryce Young. I was the first one to say some of it was fool's gold, and I'm not completely. People are valuing him way too high, in my opinion. That being said, I do think there's something to him. I think he can be a middle of the road NFL quarterback, and that can win a lot of games and can be your QB2 on the right team.
Yeah. I just struggle to find myself seeing a world where Bryce Young can produce meaningful passing stats. I really do. I think there's a lot of issues in Carolina that stem beyond Bryce Young's talents. And certainly you have the other hindrance of his talents too, of whether he can actually do the job and be the starting quarterback for an NFL franchise going forward. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah. He really needs Leggett to take a step up. Like, he really needs that.
Totally
bad.
agree. Totally agree. Tyler, any final thoughts on Bryce Young or Jordan Love here?
My only thing is kind of echoing what Coach said is like I don't think he's down and out. I don't think you can just write him off. I think if you can get him on the cheap, it's worth probably seeing if he's worth the hype, if his value goes up at all. But I'm not going out there to overpay for him to be my QB2 or anything like that. I'd probably be comfortable with like QB3. I mean, at this point, like if he became Russell Wilson, like let's say later stages, would you be happy with that? Probably, so. I would take that. I would look at that value, somewhere in the early second range, maybe. I'd probably consider that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for us, guys. We're approaching the hour and a half mark. It was a good show. We got another mock in. We're really excited to do that. So if you're here, we appreciate you tuning in. Be sure to hit that like button. Let us know in the comments what you thought about our mock, or if you've got a player you want us to talk about in Dynasty Fantasy Football. We've got all sorts of content up there on the Faceoff Sports Network. So be sure to subscribe. Go check out those videos. Tons of player profiles. We've got the U flag flying in the background. Perfect way to end the stream.